Good morning, friends. How are you, gang? Good morning. Welcome. And we're back. It is another week. Hey, Linda, good morning. How's Sophia doing? I hope she's doing all right. I'm thinking of her and keeping her in my prayers. Karen, good morning to you. I hope everybody is well in your household. Joe and Lynn Long, everybody. We are in Ohio. Love it. Hey, Jane and John. Great to see you. John Wills, everybody. Glad you're here. So good to see you, man. I bet it is frosty up there. Did you have a temperature this morning for when you came in? I can't imagine. It was like 15 down my way, and I'm sure it was mightily cold up your way. Vicky, good morning to you. Hope you're grand. She's getting better. Thanks for the prayers. Oh, good news. Excellent. Glad to hear that. Jamie, how are you? Fall River misses you, Jamie. Just want you to know that. So, how's everybody doing today? Hope you are grand. It's actually, the temperature has gone down since I got up this morning. It's now 14 degrees. 3 degrees with minus 10 wind chill. Skipped our morning walk. Discretion is the better part of valor. 4 degrees in beautiful Rockport, Maine. Oh, goodness gracious, Sharon. Buckle up. And Mr. Boobar. Oh, yes, right. Oh, brr. Yeah, we actually have the fireplace going in the other room today, and I was struggling to keep up. So, yeah, it is chilly willy. Good morning, everybody. How are you? I see a couple more people coming in. We'll get going in just a second. It is good to see everyone. I'm glad to be back. Glad to have you here. Thank you for checking in. Thank you for saying hi. It's so good. All right, friends, it is this Tuesday, the 11th day of January. It is 1/11/22. It is this day where we're coming together to start another week at 11/11, and I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're a part of this. If you make a comment, I'm going to try and say your name, because we need to hear our names said out loud to each other, and we need to be welcomed and embraced in these days. And so that's part of what we hope to do here. I want to invite you to, so many folks I know, are sick right now. They're not perilously sick, but they're sick. They're, and they're, as is wont to have in the middle of January and in the middle of all that, all that's unfolding. And so, and with 14 degrees out where here in Fall River and colder in other parts. So all of it, that we might come to be together. Even if we're not in the same room and we're not sharing the same space, we're sharing the same heart for a moment, and that's a gift. I want to remind you that a little while ago we did a Bible study in the book of James, and James is such a powerful book. If you're looking for something to study, I can't recommend it enough for these days. But there's just one line out of James which just always keeps coming back to me, because I'm a sailor, but two, because I think it's really critical for us to remember in these days right now, and where we just might not be able to feel like we can get a lot of purchase on things in our life. And we can't we're maybe just, whether it's cold and we don't want to go for our morning walk, or we're not feeling well, or people we love aren't feeling well, whatever it is. And James, he writes this, he says, ships, he talks about ships are directed by a very small rudder. Now he's talking about the tongue. He's talking about what we speak and what we say. But I think his articulation of this idea of this reality that the large changes of our life, the huge changes, the way our lives transform from one thing to another are actually results of tiny and small shifts. That, if you think about, you fall in love and with someone, it's just your encounter with one person. That's all it is. It's not a big thing. You encounter people all day. You encounter people throughout the course of your life, but that you should encounter one person that would make your heart sing, that could make you want to spend all your time with them as best as you can, that make you want to cleave and make a life together. But it's just one person, right? It's just one person that you've encountered. You encountered thousands of people in the course of your life, but this one encounter changed everything. And the same way it is with, and I even think this is true when we talk about Jesus, that when we talk about, God come into the world, God come into the world as one person. God didn't come into the world with an army, with a posse, with all the angels surrounding. God came in as one person. And then when we think about that in the course of a globe, in the course of a world, it's a tiny shift. It's almost an immeasurable shift. I mean that it's impossible for us as people even to know how many down to the person how many people have actually ever lived on the planet. We don't have that number. We got a close number. We got an approximation number, but we can't even get down to that granular level of detail to the one who came into the world as Jesus, who transformed everything. Just one. When James writes that ships are directed by a very small rudder, he's talking about the tongue, he's talking about what we speak, that it changes our heart, changes all sorts of things, but really he's touching on a greater truth, that power is actually in the small things of life. So one of the things that gets studied a lot are revolutions and how change happens in the world. One of the things that they've discovered is that movements that move the world in the direction that they desire to move. One of the first things that they've discovered is that nonviolent movements, nonviolent protests in particular, are actually twice as likely to succeed as armed conflicts. So you think about a civil war that is, the American Civil War that's designed to end slavery. Or some kind of conflict that goes violent, it has a far less likely chance of actually accomplishing the goals that it set out to do, to make the changes it wanted to make over time. That the ideals that the people who are being a part of that change making, when violence enters in, you're twice as less likely. And that actually, when nonviolent protests take place, that people who study these things discover that there's actually a sweet spot of people that have to be engaged in that protest. So when we talk about, if you want to make, there's going to be a change in the world and there is a protest, and that protest stays nonviolent, which now it has twice as likely a chance of succeeding as it ever did if it were a violent transformation, the number of people that have to be engaged in that, I want you to guess a number. Guess a percentage. How many people? 40% of the people have to be engaged in the protest? 30% of the people? 20%? The number is actually 3.5%. And so people who study this are able to map it. That in any given society, once the 3.5% of the people shift their focus from just kind of going on in their daily life to changing, to being an actual change agent, to getting into the street, again, doesn't mean violence. Violence actually decreases the chance. That actually change agent getting onto the streets, 3.5% of the people 3.5% of the people, of the population, once they get that, and it's kind of a magic number. It's true cross-culturally. They've studied it in Germany with the Candle Revolution. They studied it in Manila with the changes that happened in the Philippines. They've studied it all over the world, and there's something magical about 3.5%. Once the 3.5% of the population gathers and says, we're not going to take this anymore, and we're going to dedicate our time and energy to letting those in power know that this is no longer going to stand, the society changes, and that they have a much better chance, and that they move towards those changes that they saw fit. Now, I'm not necessarily advocating protest. That's not my point. My point is to come back to James's point of ships are directed by a very small rudder. And I want to bring this back to your life and your being. You see, if we can keep out of the bitterness, the violent side of us, if we can get out of the things of like just want to get that guy, but if we can dedicate even just a tiny bit of ourselves towards being other than we are, we can begin to open to the incredible radical transformation that God has for us. That this idea, we feel sometimes so hopeless to feel like we're other than we are, to lose the way we want to lose, to be the way we want to be, to curb our temper, to whatever the thing it is that to lift ourselves from despair. We feel like these are monumental, elephantine tasks that we just can't climb that mountain. And yet the reality of every change in the world is that it actually takes a small amount of movement to make great changes. One of my very favorite quotes in the whole wide world from my favorite theologian, Emanuel Swedenborg, is he says this. And I've said it before, but I'll continue to say it again because I feel like it's one of the most hopeful things I know. He says that the nature of divine providence is such, the nature of God's operation with us is such, that when we move one thing, God moves 1,000 things. Friends, in these days, that I want to invite you to be a Benjaminite. So of the 12 tribes of Israel, the Benjaminites were the tribe of Benjamin was the smallest tribe. It was the tribe that actually had the littlest footprint in terms of area. It had the littlest footprint in terms of population, but it was actually considered the most effective in battle. When we look back on that and we look at this in terms of the reality of our spiritual life, it is not the great changes. It is not the Dans and the Ashers and the Judahs, the big tribes of Israel. It is not the big movements of our life. It's actually the it's the small ones that are actually get us to the most transformation. So I want to invite you to be a Benjaminite. I want you to invite you to make a small shift in your life, just a tiny one, to open one little door and see what 1,000 things operate behind that. Stop trying to clean up everything. Stop trying to get everything together. Stop trying to order your life or get it right. Like, you're not going to do it. I'm sorry. If I'm the one that's telling you this, I'm really sorry that I have to tell you this. But you're never going to get it together. Because the whole operation of our whole life it wasn't our life to begin with. It's been given to us. The whole operation of our life is to step into the stream of the Lord's providence for us, to step into the operation of what God is unfolding in our life, to move with the way in which things are unfolding for us. And that in that movement, when we open ourselves, when we open our doors, when we claim our Benjaminiteness, when we move the smallest of our tribes, in that direction of God's call and God's love and God's invitation to us, everything else can begin to move and shift. Everything else can begin to move and change. Everything else can be better than it is. But if it's all up to me, or if it's all up to you, we can be lost in that. And I know that this era and this time right now, all that the messages that come to us can quickly kind of get us swept up in all the things that we feel like we need to do to order our life, or to get our things together, or to be prepared, or whatever it is that you're wrestling with. The perfect is the enemy of the good. The perfect is the enemy of the good. The Lord is perfect. You and I, we aren't. But the good are things that we can embrace. And we can embrace them in the smallest of ways. We can soothe ourselves when we are anxious. We can take ourselves for a walk when we need to move. We can open ourselves to another human being. We can love somebody that's near us. We can do these tiny, small maneuvers that can be the most powerful thing on the spiritual battlefield of all the things. Because James is right. Not just in the physical way that ships move, that small rudders move great ships, but that small movements in our life, small movements towards the good, small course corrections towards the heavenly city, can bring us, you and me, into the opening of what God has in store, of the good gifts that our Father in heaven wants to give us. 3.5%, and the world changes. Doesn't even seem possible, does it? But it's true. Bethlehem, the smallest of cities. No reason anything good should come from there. But it's the place that Jesus is born from. One person, Jesus the Christ, born fully God and fully man, transforms the world. One movement by you towards the good transforms the world. Don't be discouraged. Don't open to despair. Don't let in all that would tell you there's nothing to be done. Because the simplest act of justice, the simplest act of kindness, the simplest act of joy, the simplest act of beauty, the simplest act of truth has behind it 1,000 actions by the one who made us. And these are the good gifts that our Father in heaven wants to give us. So my hope is you'll be a Benjaminite. You'll step into the tiniest of tribes that is the greatest on the battlefield, that the tiniest of movements in your life can change and bring about the greatest experiences of grace and love by the one who made you and by the world in which you encounter. And that in that, the very kingdom of heaven may find you. All right, friends, that's my hope for you today. I just want to say hi to everybody who came in. Hey, Rosalia, great, glad you made it. Yvette, glad you're here. Hey, Amy, hope you're feeling better. Donna, I pray you are healing well. I think you're doing all right and resting. Good morning. I'm glad you're well. I hope Amelia's doing well too. We'll continue to pray for her. So it's a good morning, friends. It is a good morning, because in the tiniest of things, in the smallest of movements, is the power to open all the hosts of heaven all that Christ Jesus commands into our life. I hope you will in this day. All right. Peace and grace, my friends, and we'll pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.